Howdy, Hayley Jepson. How are you, my love?
I'm great, Maddie Cock. How are you? Nice to
I'm
see you.
very good. Thank you. Thank you. Um, well, we were in ghosting season, spooky season last time, and now we're in tax season because the seasons are getting more exciting.
What a
by the
joy.
minute. From ghosted to taxes.
What a time to be alive, as you said.
Exactly. Well, it's tax season, one, if you're in the UK, and two, if you're not one of those freaks of nature, super organized early bird people who have their shit together and submit all the taxes
Yeah.
on the 6th of April, which is, in my understanding, very much the minority. Or you just have so many awful years of doing accounts that you just have no choice but to be turned into that person.
Yes.
I veer between the two, but I want to know which one you were behind the chair. Were you 6th of April gal, or were you bin bag full of receipts on the 31st of Jan?
I was bin bag full of receipts in April.
Ah, okay, that's good.
So I was like, I had a long suffering, lovely accountant for a long time.
Yeah.
And she was really kind with my disorganization. But I used to, the minute I was allowed to submit my stuff to her, I used to, because in my brain in them days, if she did my books quickly, I knew what my tax bill was going to be for the year, and I
Yeah.
would save up accordingly.
Yeah, give
That's
yourself
how I
like 9
used to
months
do
or
it in
whatever.
my head back in the day.
That's
I
a
would
good
be
shout.
like, I would say to her, do it fast. And then
Yeah.
I'd be like,
Tell me
divide
what I
whatever that
owe.
number was between that and whatever was
Yeah,
left until
that's
January.
smart.
And that's how I was doing it once upon a time.
Yeah.
And so I was always actually like on it, kind of,
Yeah.
but in a disorganized way.
Like not
So,
quite saving it in the moment, but going, well, I've got 9 months thereabouts to, or however many months
yeah,
it is.
I'm like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
opposite now. Now I save in advance, whereas I used to
Same.
sort of, I save in advance in a different way now than I
Yeah.
used to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, yeah.
And it's different having a business like
I run a
ours is
different sort of
different
business now
because
and
it's not
stuff.
product based and all that jazz. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
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 My expenses and stuff are less complicated, I would say.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. It's different strokes, isn't it?
It's different. Yeah.
And what are
about
you seeing about this with so me, oh my god, yeah, I was like bin bag full of receipts, like crying on, the last few days of January. Just absolutely hideous. And then I got a not so good accountant, and then I got a really good accountant who I've had ever since. And generally very on it. I've got my corporation tax saved, I've got my VAT tax saved. If you're a VAT registered limited company, my god, you have to be on it with tax. Like Aidan does our accounts, and he's like, haven't we just paid tax like last month? And I'm like, oh, that's another kind of tax.
Welcome to the joys. I'll
Yeah.
tell you something funny, Maddie, though. Just before Christmas, I decided to declutter my loft because
Yes.
I'm well documenting moving house, and I found all these bags and bags of receipts.
Oh
and
my god,
like it was like organized chaos, but I found all
Yeah.
these carrier bags that all had receipts in that said things like January 2008, February 2008, and all sorts. And then I found these bags, and they're so old, all the carrier bags have disintegrated.
Yeah.
But all these envelopes are just full of receipts and printed off bank statements.
Paper diaries.
Printed off paper diaries, printed off phone bills. Like, honestly, endless.
So funny.
And I rang my accountant and I was like, I'm just checking it's 7 years. I've got to keep everything. And he was like, yeah. And so I set about sorting it all out and like shredding stuff, binning stuff and everything. And I was laughing because now it's all QuickBooks. I literally I get like a booklet thing off my accountant, and that's it.
Yeah.
There's no bags of receipts I've got to hang on to anymore. And I just thought, God, it was a palaver back in the day.
Absolutely savage, especially for like ADHD or non-diagnosed yet ADHD people. Absolutely grim to expect a person to be able to manage all that. And
now I just have a pile of receipts sat there that I need to put into my Zero that I haven't done yet.
Yeah. Get it done.
But at least I've not got to stick them in the loft for 7 years. So
that's true.
Yeah, but chaos. Yeah.
But I just what about how you're seeing with clients of yours? Because I know you not like money wise, but you help people. You do one-on-one coaching and help people through different phases of business. So how does it show for them?
I notice a lot of the time with people that I work with that around January, they start really stressing that they've not got enough for their tax bill.
Yeah.
They do it on the last minute and then they're like, I wasn't expecting that. and they
Yeah.
end up doing things like having to pay it off. You know,
Yeah.
they go on a payment plan and then they feel stressed
Yeah.
because they're trying to save up for the next year while paying off a payment plan. And people feel really, really stressed about this. And so I found that there's a lot of big feelings around that.
Yes.
And I think sometimes the payment on account thing takes people by surprise when it hits them for the first time, you know, when their profit gets high enough. You know, and they've got to pay 50% in advance. They're not prepared for that. And stuff like that can just really take people by surprise and knock them off kilter and make them feel very like unprepared and stressed. And so, I often coach people just around managing that stress and getting themselves organized, you know. And it's been really interesting to see, like, a lot of clients I've worked with for a long time are in my membership now. And you know, around this time of year, I always in the membership, how's everyone doing? And people are like, well, I'm all good now because I did what you said, and I've got a Monzo account, and I've got my tax pot, and I'm ready. And it's so brilliant. And I think it's so good for the new members that are coming in who are maybe not as organized to see what's possible. And they're surrounded by these people who are organized and who've sorted it. So I see the stress, and then I really love to see the people who've turned it around that I've coached as well. I love that.
Yeah. I think you only need 1 or 2 tax years of absolute horror before you're like, okay, I need to not do this again and make some different decisions.
I feel like the tax pots that you can put a percentage of your business in are just a game changer.
I've only just, because I had Stalin for ages. I still have Stalin, but on my Maddie Cook business with Course Creator Club, I wanted a different bank account. And I was like, I'll get Monzo because everyone talks about that. And you know, you can, obviously you can do this tax pot sweep, and it basically you set a percentage and whatever comes in, it goes out. And because in my brain I'm a bit like, oh well, I've got this other business, so this business is like, you know, to the side. I've set it at like 60% or something. I'm like, just get that out, like put that somewhere that I can't see. And that then becomes my and that becomes my tax pot for everything, my VAT pot. Like it's so good for like object permanence, like out of sight, out of mind.
I don't feel like I'm giving it because I never saw it. Like it takes it and puts it in the pot before you've even seen it. It's brilliant.
It's brilliant.
So I found that very life-changing.
Same.
What about you?
So when I work with people on the pricing, I tend to see 2 sort of quote unquote problems for this time of year. So either, or when they're doing the tax returns, either they've made profit, like you've said, or they've hit this payment on account, but they haven't saved tax. Or once they've done the tax return, there's just no profit. They're like, how the hell have I, you know, made this money? And I've worked like, you know, an absolute beast for the last year. Where's it all gone?
Yeah, I've absolutely done that myself. I remember back in the day, I was self-employed in a salon and I was doing my accounts and I was like, money comes in, I see it, I know it's coming in and I'm busy. But once I've started putting all my expenses on, I'm like, where is it gone? Where is it gone? And I started really paying attention to what I was spending and starting to realize where it was going. But I've definitely had that feeling of where did all my profit go?
Me too. Sad, like, and I think even at different points of income, so it's like no matter how little or how much you've worked, you know, I've felt like this when I did this as like a side hustle to my employed career, because then I was paying tax on everything that I made, and I had like no idea what I was doing cash flow wise, price wise. I think it's almost like no matter how much you make, it still never seems to be enough, or this often seems not that much left over. Like you say, once you put all these expenses, and it's like you look around and go, well, what have I got to show for it? Because it's a lot of the time people are like, well, I don't have a big car or a big house. It's like, literally, where did it go? And that's what what we want to talk about today. Where's the money, Hayley?
I know. Is it down the back of the couch?
Yeah, I hope so.
Where can people go and look for it? I always think,
we'll do a money hunt.
Somewhere safe. Yes, all of
safe
that.
Place. Yeah.
What I noticed when I did this, one of the first times I really started to pay attention to my money, when I was self-employed, and when I was doing my expenses, I realised that my profit was on my shelves. I was overspending. I was a colourist, and so, you know, one of my biggest expenses was colour stock, and I was overbuying I was overbuying because I was stressed, actually. One of the ways I was managing my stress was to make sure I was covered for every
Prepared.
eventuality.
Yeah.
You know, and so I had a staff room, I had a dispensary that you might have had for 6 technicians. Like
Yeah.
I was, and it was a bit out of anxiety at one point. I was buying that much stuff. I was like, I need to be prepared for someone coming in with waist length hair that's thick who wants to go purple. You know, and that's how I was thinking. I needed everything. And so I figured that out, but it was such a rude awakening to me to realize that I was massively overspending on my colour stock. And so I think so many people's profit, it's on the shelves.
Yeah, totally agree. I think that something a lot of people don't measure or maybe don't even understand is like what had a good ROI. So that's return on investment. Basically, for what I spent, this is what I got a good return on. So what is my most profitable service or what is my most profitable product? A lot of people don't know what that is until they start looking at the numbers. And it's like, what is worth your spend, what isn't, and how do you know that? Like actually assessing every quarter, like, okay, did I spend money on ads, or did I spend money on a social media person, or did I spend money on this training course, and then has that training course resulted in me getting new clients? Or anything that you're doing output, like money out, you need to be able to measure, like, has this, how much money or time or effort has this saved me? Because otherwise it's just licking your fingers, sticking it in the air, going, oh, I think this is working, without actually looking specifically at each thing.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's certainly been phases in my life earlier on in my business when I was behind the chair where I wasn't particularly tracking very closely what was going in and what was going out and where it was going. I was doing it at the end of the year when I was doing the taxes and then going, oh,
it's just one big number.
I wasn't really doing it until after the fact. I wasn't tracking it as and when, really. I might have even been writing it down because I was writing it down in them days. But I wasn't looking at it and really paying attention to it until it was too late, and then the profit was gone. And I think that I find that people can really end up with cash flow problems in their business, and that
definitely
is very panicky.
Yeah.
And I think that not tracking things and not really paying attention can lead you to a cash flow problem. And, when that happens, you feel poor. Like when there's a cash flow problem, it's awful because it makes you feel poor.
And it's so much stress on, like, if you look at your bank account or whatever, your cash flow, and go, I can't withstand, like, my tire bursting or something happening in my house, because it's just, or if I feel a bit ill and I think I shouldn't go to work today, it puts like immense pressure on you. And financial pressure is probably one of the greatest ones to feel, and it takes such a toll. What I kind of think when I talk about pricing is, if the first time you're looking at your numbers is the 31st of January, you've got to think that's for, so we're coming up to 31st January 2025. That's for the tax year 23 to 24. So it's like, how the hell are you meant to look at these numbers and assess, oh yeah, that's what happened in 2023, because you've probably just got a big lump of numbers, or like one income, one expense. And it's so hard to think back and remember what was going on. Like, what were your marketing efforts in March 2023? Were you doing loads of gift vouchers? Were you giving discounts? And also, if you do make a change, if you do your best guess and go, oh, I think it was probably good, discounts, I'm going to stop doing that. If we're in January 25 now, you then still have to deal with the fact that you were doing it since the end of the last tax year all the way through to now. So like, it's like you're playing catch up between 9 to like 18 months in the past. And I think with numbers, we really have to be in the moment, like, month to month, week to week.
It's that, isn't it? It's like looking at the information far too late. Like
definitely.
There's in a whole year where you could have impacted and you haven't. And it's like you're playing catch up.
Totally.
It can feel so overwhelming. Like, I remember when this felt so overwhelming to me.
Yeah, same.
It seemed so much bigger than it actually was when I started paying attention.
Yeah, that's it. And a lot of it is easy fixes, like in the moment. Like one huge thing that's actually easy to do is that a lot of people don't, and causes loads of problems, is they're not accounting, when they're thinking of their prices, they're not accounting for tax and national insurance. So they're kind of going, I like have many hills that I'll die on pricing wise, but it's when people go, oh, well, I'll charge X per hour plus my stock, and that's my price. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
where are the weeks off? Where is like your pension? Where is your contingency? Like, where is your budget for anything?
What about your insurance?
What about your insurance? Like, what about all these things like your music license, the stuff that's like sneaky comes out, less regularly. And then all of those things come out. Then they have to pay tax and NI. And we did our pricing survey last year. And when you actually take into account how like the not just client facing work, which you're doing, which you should be getting paid for, and your outgoings, the industry is making less than minimum wage. So when people are benchmarking minimum wage going, oh well, it's let's say it's 11 quid, I'll charge that, or I'll charge 12 plus stock. When all's said and done, you're actually making less than that as well. And because I need to go on a little side rant, if you are self-employed and you're comparing your income to an employed person gets to down tools on a Friday and not worry about work. They're not responsible for getting clients in. They're not, like, let's face it, emotionally invested in the success of the business. If the business fails, they just go out and get another job. They haven't signed leases and set up, bills and utilities. And we should be so far price-wise and how we're compensated for the work we're doing as a self-employed person from an employed person, because it's just not comparable. An employed person would get sick pay, maternity pay, 6 weeks nearly of paid holiday a year. So we need to be shooting like way, way, way higher price-wise.
The mental load is heavier.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. The stress, the responsibility, the stress, mental load, all of the hats that you're wearing, all of this.
I've absolutely had that. In this moment I was telling you about where I did this, and I looked at it and I thought, I'm earning less than minimum wage, and I was devastated, Maddie.
So upsetting.
And it was such a big turning point for me in my business, and just me as a human earning money. I just thought, this stops now.
It's just not worth it. I've worked
too hard to be earning less than minimum wage, and I was busy. Yeah, I deserved much more than that, but it was because I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, that's it.
I had a good business, I just wasn't running a good business.
Yes, that.
Yeah, all of that. I think one of the things I see, and I coach a lot of people around this, is where they are getting very successful, and then they hit the VAT threshold, and it all goes into chaos.
Yeah,
and they get stressed because they didn't know it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's like all of a sudden their accountant's like, you've hit that. And they're like, oh, and then there's a whole load of stress that goes along with that as well. Yeah. And it can feel like your profit disappears overnight.
Yeah, because we know that when people are looking forward and going, well, actually, if I'm on this current trajectory, I'll hit that in a few months. They just get a call from their accountant going, by the way, you hit that 9 months ago, and now you owe the revenue like $8,000 or whatever. Yeah. And then there's the whole thing of, I don't want to put my prices up by that amount, or, whereas if you're more prepared and you can go, right, reasonably, if I keep making this money, I'll hit it in 3 months. You could do a price increase now that's maybe not as much as that needs to be, and then do another one later in the year, or you can just, get prepared for that. Yeah, not being prepped for the VAT thresholds. I
was just thinking, it's a very much you've got to have your eye on what's happening, haven't you? More in the now.
Yeah, definitely.
Be preparing in advance. It's this. I find that sometimes we can be so reactionary in the moment.
That's a word I was thinking of. Yeah, rather than being prepared, because if you look at your numbers, you can work out pretty much. Like when I hit the VAT threshold when I was behind the chair, I was like, I know that next month I'm going to hit, because we'd been, and actually I'll go into this in a second, but my accountant at the time didn't, and I had to tell him, and he was like, oh yeah. And there's a big difference between accountants, which I'll go into in a second. One thing that I was very, very guilty of, and I still am now, is getting carried away with bright, shiny objects. I love buying stuff. So whether it's like education, the latest tool or gadget, like if a rep came into my salon, I might as well have just been like, here's my card, like sell me whatever. And it's all good and well getting those things, but back to my point before about what's the ROI, like what will you actually get back as a result of doing this thing? And do you have the money in the pot to do it? Like you were saying with the budgets and cash flow stuff.
I used to walk around the wholesalers and be like, ooh, there's a new pink foil.
Yeah. Oh, it's on special.
When that foil was silver for years, and then all of a sudden all these coloured foils, and I was like, oh, and so I was just
literal shiny objects.
Literal shiny objects and
Yeah.
stuff. And it's like, it can be education courses,
Yeah.
it can be all sorts, can't it? But it's like,
Yeah.
spending.
Yeah. And spending's fine if there's a budget for it, and it's fine if it's got a return on investment, but that's totally cool. But it's going into it when you don't measure those things and the money isn't there, and then the money doesn't come as a result. That's when it's a problem.
I think sometimes what I hear from salon owners when I'm coaching them is that their wage bills get out of hand.
Yeah. That's been huge, obviously, this past few months and coming into next tax year.
This is a huge concern. And, salon owners are really paying attention to their numbers at the moment because things are getting tighter. And I think that sometimes people do things like hire a full-time member of staff when a part-time one would have been better. And there's all sorts of reasons that people do that. Like sometimes there's a scarcity around hiring people. So when people turn up, let's grab them. And also I know sometimes people get nervous to hire part-time people because they wonder what they're doing with the other time. And they feel like they're just working from home. And then they're just going to go and do that full time eventually. So if I give them a full-time job, they won't. And so there's a lot, trying to just fear and trying to control things and all of that sort of stuff. But I think it can sometimes lead to over hiring. And then it gets really difficult to balance those books and they end up with really high wage bills, which, cash flow problems, stress.
Oh, definitely. And you can, again, this is all in, it's all in your numbers. Like when are your peaks, is how many hours realistic, like what's the demand? What does your wait list look like at a period in the year? Do you need a person to be full-time or part-time? Do you need a person at all? Do you just need to change your hours? Like there's different options, but it's in the data. I'm such a data freak.
It's so interesting though, because I'm absolutely not a data freak.
Yeah.
And it can just feel so overwhelming and like boring though as well.
Yeah,
sometimes, can't you, Maddie?
Oh yeah, totally.
These numbers, like, I just thought I could wing it for so long.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was devastated that day I realised I was earning minimum wage.
But that's what it needs sometimes to kick you up the bum to do that. And that's
absolutely.
And that was going to be my next question, actually. So when was it that you got your financial shit together? Like, what did that look like?
It was quite a long time ago now. It's when I was behind the chair. So when I came into doing the Resilient Hairdresser business, I was much more on the ball.
Yeah.
It was different, and I had to adapt a little bit because the money didn't come in the same way. And so that was a little bit of a learning curve. But when I was behind the chair, it was a long time ago when I got my financial shit together, because it was the rude awakening and the devastation that I was too old to be earning too little, was what I remember thinking. I thought I'm too experienced for this. And so one of the very first things that I did was I heard about a book called Profit First. And
great book.
I read it, I devoured it. I paid attention, I started getting pots in my bank. I feel like that's where I started. I used, before there was pots on business accounts, I used to just have hundreds of savings accounts.
Yeah, like instant savings accounts.
Yeah, like it was like the equivalent of having an envelope and putting money in. I had all these bank accounts. But Profit First was really, really helpful to me when I started to get my shit together and figure out where my profit was going. And I thought it was a mindset shift, that book. Yeah. Even if you don't do every single thing it says, the mindset shift was brilliant.
Yeah, because it's all things like pay yourself first. And then, because like you were saying, a lot of people are not, they're just like
they're taking what's left over.
Yeah, I see
what's
that.
What's left over is your wages. And it's
don't do it like that.
But there isn't
No, I love that. It's a great book. I might read that again, actually, for me little New Year's read.
I was just looking at my shelf thinking, where has it gone?
Should do a little book club, Hayley, me and you.
I don't know where it is. I had that book. I bet I gave it someone.
I know. I don't know where mine is, actually. It might be on.
I haven't got
I don't know if it was a Kindle one or something. Mine was hiring a good accountant, the love of my life, Lorraine. I speak so highly of her. I adore her. Because the first accountant that I had, and this was a lesson that I learned, is that not all accountants are created equal, even like in their job scope. So some accountants are very much like reactive, more of a sort of bookkeeper. They'll input your stuff, but they will have no conversations with you about, like I say, my first accountant did not tell me that I was going to hit that. I knew that. And that was the time that I was getting much more savvy with numbers, when I was like working out how to price properly. So that was, yeah, like, I don't know, how long had I done hair for? 4 or 5 years into doing hair. I was like terrible with all of this. So it was towards the back end. But there's such a thing called a management accountant. And a management accountant is much more like in your business. They'll like challenge you, like, why are you spending so much money on this? Or what was this thing? And looking at what certain spend is like as a percentage of your turnover, and what your benchmark should be, and helping you to, they can help with budgets. My accountant also does as a separate thing tax planning. And this is really like, I think a lot of people should be doing this, especially if you have a limited company. I meet with her once or twice a year, especially when I was buying the house, and working out like who's getting paid what do we need on, pay slips, and what's dividends, and what's, what does that look like to get the mortgage, and thinking about it in the plans for your actual overall life as well. And what do you need to earn to hit your goals, and when by, and what does that look like? So yeah, I can't speak highly enough of like, if this doesn't come to you easily, like hiring people who it does, who can sit and work it out for you and say, okay, this is where you need to be based on where you are now, what the goals are.
Yeah. One of the things that I've found I've had to do, conversations I've ended up having in coaching with hairdressers who are stressed.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they're a salon owner or a freelancer, they come to me because they're stressed. And what I sometimes discover is they're running a business, but behaving like an employed person.
Yes, so, that part.
Yeah, they're living week to week or paycheck to paycheck, and they're thinking like an employed person. Yeah, I get this, and they're not really thinking about the business. And I've had to really challenge and invite people to step into business ownership and start looking at things in quarters and years, and just start thinking a little bit bigger, because they get a little bit like they're thinking about their money week to week. Yeah. And then they go, but Sharon cancelled on Thursday, so now I'm skint. Yeah. And I'm just like, you have got to have more of a cash flow than that. Yeah. You have got to be you've got to be looking at the profit in quarters and figuring out when things are going up and down. But people are thinking in such small ways, like you did when you were tracking your commission as an employed person.
Yeah, literally that. Yeah.
And it's really limiting their businesses, and it is like a limiting belief that people have got to get over. And I find so often I'm coaching people who are really downplaying what they're doing, and
they're like side hustling when it's not a side hustle.
I've got this little business, I've got this little hobby, little old me. And I'm like, you're running a business, and you need to, like, do you think that like Amazon are looking at what they made last week?
Yeah, they're not good. Oh, one box got returned.
Stock, you've got to be thinking. You've got to stretch it at least into months and quarters and bigger and bigger. And so I coach people to just start thinking like that. And it's like, I'm not a numbers person, but I can certainly help with the mindset shifts that need to happen to get you into that place.
Yeah,
and then Maddie's your numbers person,
and then I'll help you. And that's it. Like, fundamentally, like, where does your profit come from? The money that your clients give you, minus the cost of business, expenses, wage and stuff. So if you are not charging enough, and charging in a way, like I said, that encompasses the hours that you work, how many hours that you do in non-client facing work, how many weeks off in a year, what your general capacity is, contingency, all of your overheads, all your tax, NI, personal savings, like all of those things. If you are not priced in that way, the profit just does not exist. And you just can't, I don't think you can cost cut your way out of bad pricing. And I don't think you can also overwork your way out of bad pricing, because I see a lot of people going, well, I'll do more hours. But if your profits are next to nothing, you're just working more for no extra money. And then you will be absolutely too burnt out. Then you'll go back to Hayley for your burnout. And not have the capacity to even look at the numbers. So that as an absolute like fundamental, the maths has to be mathing. Like, again, I will die on this hill.
It is. It's so true. And the pricing calculator is such a good place to start. It's so simple. You've done all the hard work.
Yeah, man. I've done all the heavy lifting mathematically for you. We'll put links in bio to membership and Hayley's membership calculator and whatever else. But and you deserve it. Like, you've worked incredibly hard to even launch in a business if you've had a business through COVID, if you've like been in business 1 year, 2 years, like that's absolutely huge. And the immense amount of work that you do and what you've done to get here, like you deserve to be paid well. But it's you who has to facilitate you being paid well.
Yeah. I think that mentally as well, just like for good mental health and just feeling good about yourself and your self-esteem and stuff, is you really need to see payoff for your efforts.
Yeah. There's nothing more demoralizing than that end of year going, like exactly what you said, how much am I getting paid, and thinking to all of the work that you've done. And me and you are both, or have been, in the bad back gang. Like we pay a physical toll behind the chair. And that's also something to consider, is like, this is not necessarily a job for life. Like, when are you going to retire, get your pension in order, get your savings, you know, all of the above. This is a very loving kick up the bum episode.
Look at those boring numbers.
Yeah, man, it's worth it, I promise. I'll get someone to help you look at them, or someone who's looked, you know, worked it all out, you know. Let's get
start paying attention. I think that was really what it was for me. It's like I was asleep, thinking it'll be all right, and then one day I started paying attention and things got a lot better.
Yeah, that's
a lot better.
I love it.
Brill. So let's do a hyperfocus, Maddie.
Okay.
What have you got?
So mine's a musical one this time, as it is sometimes. I think I've only had 2 previously. I listen to like no new music, right? I listen to like the Hamilton soundtrack and music from when I was a teenager. Yes. So all of my new music absorption comes from Aidan, who listens to a lot, and he'll just every so often go, I've heard this, I think you'll like it, or it'll just be like on the Alexa or whatever. And anyway, The Cure brought out an album back end of last year. I love The Cure, I think they're mint. And the new album's so good.
Is it?
It's really, really good. And there was a video going around. They played a show, and Pedro Pascal was at the show, and he was like dancing, having a mint time. And
he's just getting hotter, Maddie. Have you noticed?
Honestly, like, it's just outrageous. It's getting to be a bit of a problem. But now he loves The Cure and dances to them. So I was like, okay, well, if it's good enough for your boy Peds.
Better, don't he?
So that's then blown this whole, like, I don't know if you'd call it like new wave or whatever the right thing is for the genre, but I'm into like New Order, like Joy Division, Echo and the Bunnymen. Like, that's my whole.
She's doing an 80s indie sitch.
Indie goth vibes, new wave-esque. I'm just in that era. I just
language.
Yeah, man. I was thinking of you. I was like, this is Hayley's cup of tea. So that's my vibe.
Music from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, from when I was a little baby.
That's my favourites.
Yeah, I love it. But I'll be like the happiest person, like bopping along like this literally saddest song on
I
earth.
love miserable music. Miserable music is my thing. Like, I'm all it. It's like from the Smiths to Adele.
Yeah.
I like miserable music.
I like songs that sound happy but are incredibly depressing lyrics as well. So it's like
on that.
Yeah, very much. Yeah. So that's mine. What's yours currently?
I've gotten obsessed with Reddit recently, Maddie, and I know that you're a bit of a Reddit person because you
spoke
to me about it before, but I've gotten deep into Reddit. It's happened with the house moving thing, and so hopefully that is happening now. 3rd time lucky. I should be moving house sometime soon. But when I was deciding to move to a new area that I don't live in, I don't know. And so I took to Reddit and was like, who lives here? What's it like? And I really did that. And I learned loads of really good information from people who lived in the area who were like, not this bit, in this bit, here, not here. Like, and that was really, really good. And now Reddit has moved up to, how do you remove wood chip from ceilings? Because the house I've bought, hopefully, is absolutely covered in wood chip. You know, it's old people lived in it before.
I have like harrowing memories so my sister's 10 years older than me, shout out Jenny, and when she sort of moved out when she was younger, I must have been like a teenager, I'm sure there was some sort of exchange of like pizza or a very small amount of pocket money that's definitely not minimum wage to scrape wood chip off, and when you put the steamer on, it just goes to like gooey plastic that's burning hot to try and touch, and then the wood chip's really hot.
Well, Reddit's telling me that you can oversteam and then your walls will definitely need replastering, because that's what, like, all of that. So I'm like, ooh, so I'm into this. But anyway,
love it.
Yeah, Reddit is a hive of information and it's not very miserable.
No, it's really good. It's really genuinely really, really helpful. Like,
it's a good place. I've got an account and everything now. I used to just ask questions and read, but now I've actually got an account. I've started.
Did I tell you that? Did I tell you that Reddit saved me like £10,000?
Yes,
on my stamp duty.
I was thinking about you, and I was like, Reddit's great.
It's so good.
And they've got like a section for the area I'm moving to. And so you can literally just go to that area and be like,
big up the Redditors of your area. That's really sweet, isn't it? People are generally helpful, is my decision I've made.
Yeah. My
belief.
It's been really good. And like a couple of people were literally like, you can DM me and ask me more questions in private if you want. And so there was, I think it's a bloke, who knows? I'm not dead sure, because everyone has such weird names on there. You know, was dead helpful.
I love it.
So yeah,
big up Reddit. Great. We need like a coffee isn't lunch Reddit appreciation thread.
Honestly, I'm loving it. I'm all about the Reddit life now.
Nice. Welcome to my world, the forum life.
Yes, it's good. I like it there.
Lush.
Well, I also joined the Selling Sunset group in.
I'm in like absolutely insane different groups.
Yeah, I've expanded from actually helpful into ridiculous now.
And it also starts, if you've got notifications on, it starts just like suggesting groups and being like, I'm just going to put you in here and see if you like it. And I'm like, when did I join this? Like, I'm in loads of like Amex, like Air Miles groups and but also some like really weird ones. So there's some gossip ones if you're in gossipy type things. Yeah. There's all sorts on Reddit.
It's fun.
I love it. Well, as always, I was going to say a blessing, not a curse. A pleasure, not a chore.
Pleasure. Yes.
Enchanté. Charmed.
Charmed, I'm sure, my dear.
Charmed, I'm sure.
Ciao.
Ciao. I'll see you in a few.
Next time.
Ciao, pal.
Bye. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments.
Please support those who support us and check out Timely, who we recommend is our favourite booking system for you. New customers can get 50% off their first 3 months with the code COFFEE50.